Futsal, a sport that thrives in the streets of South America, has grown now into a global phenomenon, deeply embedded in countries like Brazil, Spain, and even new giants like Portugal.
Unbelievable finish! And Portugal are world champions!
However, the culture is different in England.
The culture.
Now you're digging into the culture of the country.
We have to change the whole culture of a nation.
This documentary explores why futsal culture hasn't taken off in the UK, a nation known for its deep love for football. As we'll see, the rise of countries like Portugal and France gives hope that the UK could follow a similar path. Jamie Fahy, one of the few journalists that covers futsal for a big media outlet like The Guardian, has more to say about this beautiful sport.
My name's Jamie Fahy, and throughout my 20s became a journalist and now combine my passion for football and futsal. And I've written a book about futsal called Futsal, the Story of an Indoor Football Revolution. The similarities with football are what drew me into futsal, but it's the differences that keep me there. Imagine football with all the most impressive, the most joyous bits magnified and multiplied. More goals, more shots, more saves, passing combinations, more counter-attacks, brutally technical 1v1 encounters. And if you then smash or volley into Rose Ed all of football's worst excesses, whether that's gratuitous time wasting, unnecessary VAR drama, offside, goalless draws, then you're left with something resembling futsal. It looks like football, but it feels like basketball. It's a rapid counter-attacking game with an urban maverick intensity.
Futsal isn't a scaled-down version of football. It's a sport with its own unique appeal. Played on a smaller indoor court with a heavier, low-bounce ball, futsal requires a demanding set of skills: quick thinking, tight ball control, and precise passing. It's a game of highlights where every touch, pass, and movement are a demonstration of skill and strategy. Many football legends credit futsal for honing their skills. Players like Ronaldinho, Messi, Iniesta, and Neymar all began on the futsal court.
Futsal is a five-a-side. It's just a more intense game of football, very tight, and so it develops the contact with the ball with your foot in different areas. The outside, the inside, the sole. You use the sole a lot. That develops 1v1 situations. That develops just those skills that could allow you to score a goal. I do think that many of the young players now lose that opportunity to develop the skill, because when you play on the street and under those conditions, where do you develop the technical ability?
However, England has its own version of futsal, called five-a-side, which is a big part of the culture. Even so, current English Premier League players like Max Kilman from Wolves and Kobbie Mainoo from Manchester United have roots in futsal.
Fútbol sala es un gran desconocido en Inglaterra. Tú te encuentras con gente y les dices que juegas al fútbol sala y te preguntan qué es eso. Es que decir que es un 5 contra 5, indoor, y tienen ellos los que le llaman aquí el five-a-side, con las porterías bajitas, en las que el balón puede rebotar en las paredes, y se creen que es eso.
Perhaps the equivalent of what you do in Spain, where you'll play futsal. We have our own version, which is bouncy football, letterbox goals as we call them, so 1 metre high, 5 metres wide, and that game almost prevents futsal taking off. That can change, but that's a big barrier.
The appreciation for the game of futsal is slowly growing in the UK, and coaches are realizing how important it is for players' development. Former England manager Gareth Southgate spoke about the importance of futsal right after the 2022 World Cup.
I think we're definitely more aware of developing skills and decision making at a young age, and a game like futsal, you get so much contact with the ball in tight areas. It really challenges techniques, but also there are tactical things that come out from it. Of course, young children find it difficult to work out the spaces and things in an 11-a-side game, so it's much better for them to start 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, build the game up, and then when they've got the capacity to understand all of the dynamics of 11v11, they've already got the skills and decision making embedded.
In Spain, futsal is more than just a sport. It's embedded in communities, schools, and daily life. In contrast, the UK's futsal scene remains fragmented and underfunded.
For example, Spain has been embedded in Spanish culture and Brazilian culture for God knows how many years since the inception. So here is kind of developing from scratch. And yeah, until we kind of figure out the balance between football and futsal, it won't develop into something more.
Con David Peña jugando de portero, jugador el Barça, la pierde, Cerón, gol.
Alejandro Cerón, former 2019 Champions League winner with FC Barcelona, explains how he became U19 European champion with Spain.
Y nada, por cómo se dio en Letonia, que resulta que en Letonia está una base militar española. Habían 300, 400 militares en la grada. Y luego como se dio que ganamos la final 7-1 a Croacia, pues toda la gente, las familias en la grada, con todo de gente española en la grada, o sea, fue un sueño, o sea, fue un sueño, la verdad. Es que básicamente yo creo que lo que pasa es que todos empezamos a jugar en el cole. Y entonces en el colegio siempre empiezas jugando a fútbol sala con los amigos. Y entonces yo creo que realmente es muy positivo el que hasta los jugadores de fútbol grande, porque hay aspectos tácticos de pisarla, del control, de todo que solo lo puedes aprender con fútbol sala. Y yo creo que es bueno que el primer contacto con el fútbol sea en el colegio, jugando a fútbol sala y con los amigos.
In Spain, when you are a kid, you start working on that. Technically, in Spain, technically and tactically, you start working on that. In England was the pomo, position of maximum opportunity, so
the direct play.
Yeah, so long ball, second ball.
Ryan Walsh and Richard Ward both spent some time in Spain, not only playing futsal, but enjoying a different culture. After playing there, they've come back totally different players and can share the insights of their experience.
I think people come into the game often too old, and so they haven't grown up with the basics, so you're already trying to coach them at 18, 19, 20, what kids in Italy and Spain have been doing since they were younger.
It's embedded from an early age. I'd say over there you've got it obviously in schools and everything. It's a requirement to have a court built at the school, so it's just normal for them to have access to it.
For me, the biggest thing in England is understanding. Fake movements in this country, I do my head in. People just go, what's that? Who are you getting rid of? The coach just say, yo, you need to do a fake movement first. Yeah. Why? There needs to be detail behind it, but players don't have the understanding, but the coaches don't have the understanding. Are you A for B? It's just Spanish level 1.
I think the community feeling I had in Spain was what I loved. Having everyone know everyone. Everyone would get a beer after training, no exceptions. Whereas in England that really doesn't happen because people are driving from everywhere. There's no community feeling in London, I'd say, and a lot of the UK. La esencia que tiene el fútbol sala en España son los pueblos, tío. Y donde están los seguidores de verdad del fútbol sala es en los pueblos. O sea, no vas a ir a ningún pabellón de España donde haya mejor ambiente y más ambiente que en los que te he dicho, Valdepeña. Manzanares. Pues sí, el Barça obviamente es un club que tiene todo lo que tiene detrás y obviamente pues tiene muchos seguidores, pero... O sea, nadie va a sentir más ese equipo y va a tener un sentimiento tan grande que una persona de un pueblo que tiene el pabellón a 3 metros y que, o sea, el partido del fin de semana es casi su vida, ¿sabes?
As we can see, the futsal culture in Spain is huge, especially in little villages like Theron mentioned. However, this documentary wants to show why it isn't developed in England.
The big factor that I haven't mentioned so far is the weather. Futsal's an indoor sport. You have to have a court. You have to have the goals a surface with lines rather than boards. And you have to have futsal balls. And all of these things are rare or overly expensive or difficult to access in Britain. Obviously, because of the rain, the incessant rain.
In England, futsal finds himself in a path of challenges to overcome, the first one being the constant rain and bad weather. However, English futsal legend Richard Ward thinks quite differently.
I don't think it's a barrier. I think it should be the opposite. In England, the barrier is the price. It's such an expensive place to rent facilities, and there's not very many because there's not enough people playing indoor sports. So then it exacerbates the problem.
As Richard explains, the biggest hurdle is the lack of dedicated futsal facilities. Indoor spaces are scarce and expensive in the UK, making it difficult for teams to train and play regularly. Without affordable venues, the sport struggles to expand.
All the sports halls are built just for the sport hall, that's it. And they don't think about a viewing gallery. And it's due to a space thing as well. So like in London, for example, that extra 5 meters that they're going to need for that stand is going to be another 200 grand maybe.
I feel like it's really hard in the country in general. For example, in London, it's really hard to find courts, for example, to train in. You can find the court, but you can only use half of it, you can only use a certain part of it. And I feel like it's really, really hard to find a consistent place to train.
Biggest issues are sports that are played indoors, like badminton. They love badminton here. I don't know why, but they love it. But all of our courts in England are privately owned. Badminton, they can do 4 pitches and make, let's say, £40 off each pitch for hours, then doing the whole pitch for 1 hour to the futsal team. So we're always competing with that because for them it's profit at the end of the day and it's a private entity.
The lack of basketball, handball, hockey, roller hockey, all that in England just means that there aren't those facilities yet.
This is not all. Futsal is often seen as a foreign sport in England, competing with deeply rooted traditions in rugby, tennis, cricket, and obviously football. This perception, coupled with the lack of indoor sports participation, limits its appeal.
The English culture is so focused on rugby, cricket, and football that they just don't even think about it. They rather, get wet than play an indoor sport.
Tienen otra cultura. Los deportes de interior son el netball y el badminton en Inglaterra. Y desafortunadamente el fútbol sala no consigue tanto beneficio como te puede conseguir el badminton.
Finally, it's known how much they love football in England. And that is also one of the biggest barriers for futsal's growth in the country.
Obviously, the history of football in England and in Britain is enormous. All the role models, all the stars, they're footballers. And essentially, it's way too powerful and all-consuming culturally in Britain for futsal to take off.
A lot of people see it as kind of a threat to the culture, so that's why it won't be fully developed until people start realising that they can work together.
What frustrates me about it is, the pyramid system of football in England, right from the Premier League down, the amount of money and wealth involved in that. And then you go to the National League and there's money involved in that. Then you go to non-league football and there's money involved in that. Yeah. Then you go to semi-pro and people are playing, listen, let's be honest, and I've got friends who play it and they'll be honest, they're playing shit standards of football and getting paid 50 quid a week.
Ben Stevens, creator of the platform Total Futsal, spoke with England futsal icon Stuart Cook, who has very interesting views on non-league football in England.
The main tagline that he says, as someone that came from playing semi-professional football in England to futsal, is even though he's gone and had an England international futsal career where he's got 80 odd caps and been around the world with England, he was still getting paid more at step 6 of the English football pyramid to play semi-pro football and train twice a week. He was getting paid at that level as much as he probably ever has done with futsal. And at the end of the day, that's a big consideration for people.
Without the needed investment, the financial difficulties for futsal clubs are many. So, on many occasions, they have to rely on volunteers.
Y a los 2 años de estar aquí, empecé con el fútbol sala en la universidad. Como voluntario, venía a los entrenamientos, 2 años de voluntario, luego salí una pequeña posición en la que me pagaban por lo menos el transporte, luego al año siguiente ya me contrataron como uno de los asistentes, hasta que llegué a lo que tengo ahora.
Ultimately, everything needs money. We need backing. We need sponsors to run a tier 1 club. it's a lot of money. I believe it's in the region of like 10,000 a season, maybe 15,000 a season. Like, it's an amateur club, so you have to. If you don't get the sponsors, it's impossible.
Not only clubs suffer these economic struggles. Players have to manage a job outside of futsal because the sport is underdeveloped in England, so it can't pay its players. So getting the travel expenses paid is already an effort for futsal clubs.
Travel expenses, I think, is probably, brilliant if you can get that. So we're really lucky at Bloomsbury to get that. Until we are bringing in revenue, you can't justify it. You can't justify it without the right sponsorship. It's also tricky asking more of players because cost of living in England is much higher, so you can't be professional.
What do you call it? Professional amateurism, I can't remember what the kind of thing is, but you take it really seriously. You go to games all over the country, so it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm a recreation assistant, and I found it difficult to actually get a job because going into interviews, you want to be fully honest with who's hiring you and say you have these commitments. Because I want to take it as professionally as I can, but the reality is you need money to fund playing the sport.
The costs are probably a little bit prohibitive, so certain players are maybe restricted from playing because, or it might make you choose to play football where you can earn, £50 a week rather than play futsal where you're going to pay £50 a week to play.
England is lucky of how passionate its futsal players are, because a lot of them sacrifice many things to play the sport they love. This sentiment of affection gives hope for futsal's growth in England.
It's probably always been a bit of a life balance where if I had to spend money on it, I sacrificed other things. I didn't go out as much. I didn't, party as much. I didn't, go on that holiday that I wanted to go on. But
I think you're putting a huge amount of trust in the commitment of these players, like you say, without any reward. And
to accelerate this growth, England needs to look at other countries with similar futsal culture to learn from them. Use them as an example to follow.
What I discovered from looking at all the biggest case studies of countries that have shown remarkable growth, the one defining characteristic for all of them is that futsal is very much the game of the schools.
Fabio Pereira is a Portuguese player who recently transitioned from Wessex to LDN movements. In the past, he played in several divisions in Portugal, competing against elite clubs like Sporting de Lisboa or Benfica. His insights are key to understand futsal's growth in his home country, Portugal.
At this point, everyone that is playing futsal is about passion in this country. And I can tell you, all my years that I played in Portugal, we were paid to play. Even the lower leagues, not even national. I'm speaking as a player playing in England. Clubs don't own venues, and I think the difficulty comes from here. It should be more centralized. The capital, London, should be having more teams. In Portugal is Lisbon. We have Sporting, Benfica. We have a lot of teams over there. Where is the central of futsal. Futsal was not a big thing over there, but since the football teams started to get involved, they started to invest in it, and they started with the schools, and then they went for the unis. Since then, people start to play futsal. Since 12 years old, you already have a competitive league to play.
And what they did has been spectacular. They're currently the top of the futsal tree in the men's game and in the women's game. Basically, they decided about 15 years ago that they wanted to devote time and energy in a joined-up way through the Portuguese Federation, fully backed by the Portuguese FA. They decided they would get behind futsal. They wanted to make futsal the game of the schools and do it properly. And this is something that needs to happen in England first. The English FA has to show a meaningful desire to progress the game and grow the game.
Or, France now, they start at the same time as us. They're now a top 10 side or top 15. So it just goes to show with the right investment and the right backing from our FA Federation that, anything's possible.
The COVID-19 pandemic was a hard hit for everyone, especially for English futsal. Between 2015 and 2020, futsal was growing exponentially in England. Led by Peter Schalps, the National Futsal League partnered with Spain's Liga Nacional de Fútbol Sala and rebranded as LNFS England, sparking a political battle with the FA that ultimately benefited the sport. Meanwhile, the FA's National Futsal Series responded by improving its product, securing a BT Sport broadcast deal, increasing exposure for English futsal.
Antes del COVID La competición estaba genial.
However, in 2020, the FA cut funding for grassroots and elite futsal, attacking the sport directly and sinking his players' morale.
You know, without an England programme, a lot of the great players, stop playing because, what's the point?
For me, the real carrot is playing for England. And it kind of always has been since my first training session. For me, that led to everything from going to the gym, dedicating myself to it, missing birthdays, missing weddings, all that sort of stuff to really achieve and do the best that I could. So and for the richest federation to not be able to find a way to make it work was frustrating. And I think we attribute that to the lack of knowledge of the game. Like, it wouldn't happen to football, it wouldn't happen to cricket, rugby. So it's a cultural thing. Ultimately, the sentiment from the group at that time was that they didn't understand what they were cutting because the people involved in that decision didn't know the game.
Really sad, because we'd come a long way. So yeah, we felt like we were gaining lots of momentum, and to have it taken away, it hurt. Like, for me personally, I felt like I'd lost some of my identity because, people know me through futsal as an England international, so I felt like I lost a bit of me. When I struggled quite a lot during that time, like, I had to take a break from social media, and speaking to friends, I took myself to myself. I felt like, I'd given so much to be an England player.
This is England's 8th corner of the game. Taken back this time to Palfreeman! What a wonderful strike!
And then they just give us the boot, with no hesitation, no feeling,
Otra cosa que también afectó al fútbol sala, la EFL tenía un programa muy fuerte para los chavales de 16 a 19. Casi todos los equipos de la Premier League, en su fundación, lo que le llaman la Community Trust, tenían un equipo de fútbol sala. Pero la EFL cortó el dinero para eso, y para mí esa ha sido la mayor pérdida que se ha tenido.
In December 2022, the FA announced the launch of England Futsal, an independent venue with the aim of providing long-term stability and growth for futsal in England. For the past 3 years, 330 hours of futsal were played on BT Sport across 3 seasons, making it the biggest broadcast commitment ever in the history of English futsal. Its main goal was to increase visibility, connecting to new and wider audiences, improving the level of the country at the same time. However, in terms of media coverage, it didn't take futsal to a whole new level, as futsal fans thought it would.
That has brought a little bit of attention, a little bit of publicity, but still lacks the breakthrough to the national media. Very few news organisations report on futsal. The Guardian's probably the only one that writes regularly about the game, but often only when it links to football.
Media coverage and social media promotion is something to improve on. This TNT TV deal helped, but it could have supported the sport a lot more than it did.
And it just struck me how frustrating it was that, like you say, I'd looked out there for futsal content in England, and, Jamie was one of the only guys of any sort of high profile that was covering futsal, and any sort of decent media that was out there was done by the club, Bolton, Manchester, those sort of Bloomsbury, but nothing that was independent. And that's what I wanted that's what I want Total Futsal to be. The challenge is that there's no structure there, that there's no setup or system there where if you go to a game, there's not a platform that you can go and send that piece to.
However, there are some bright spots, like LDN Movements, a futsal club that Jamie Sawyer started with his friends, and they just got promoted to Tier 2. LDN Movements post all their games on YouTube, where they have more than 1.3 million followers, getting around 400,000 views per video.
What he's doing for the sport is big. He's getting 500,000 views every video, which is big for the country, for the sport as well.
London Movement's probably one of the first ones in England that have been able to promote the sport.
I feel like he's a real sunshine and know this. They've got so much exposure to the game now. Imagine in a couple of years, if they're in tier one, how much they can bring, not just financial, but also from fans, and there's a lot of potential there.
LDN movements are getting the sponsors, and it's all thanks to social media and platforms like YouTube. Obviously, without forgetting the work that they've put in, growing their channel and their brand. This success led to Jamie having the opportunity to play in the Champions League qualifiers for the Scottish champions, Aberdeen Futsal.
Instagram Reels, TikTok, these are all platforms that the younger generation are tapped into, and they enjoy watching skills, goals, assists.
Social media is probably the biggest way to promote anything nowadays. Even if you have 100 followers to 1,000 to 10,000, you can always promote it in that way.
It's free, it's cheap, accessible. So when it's done right, and like we said earlier with the London movements, you get a lot of fans. It's gonna generate that interest.
What an amazing season it's been, man. We're genuinely creating history in this sport, and it's a pleasure, man. It's an absolute pleasure to be doing it with the people I'm doing it with and to be doing it in front of you guys.
You know, he's investing money in the production side. You know, the values of what he's producing is high level. You know, and he's got some sponsors in the background. So, and I'm sure he's brought people into the sport. And from what I saw, there was quite a big crowd at their cup final. You know, so they did a really good job of promoting that.
Jamie did 500 at 10 quid a ticket, straight away that's $5,000. But if I'm the NFS, I'm going to be trying to ask Jamie if we can stream it on his platform as well. Because why would you not try and access 0.1 million subscribers?
1.5, I think.
Exactly, like why would you not try and access those people?
Social media is a very powerful tool to promote anything, especially something entertaining to watch like futsal is. LDN movements can help England Futsal, the FA, the NFS, and vice versa. These governing bodies should be aware of the futsal-loving community Jamie has built and try to take advantage of it for futsal's sake.
Ask for help. You know, I know Jamie. He wants to help futsal. He cares about futsal. It's, you know, you see the numbers he gets on his videos. It's insane.
Yeah.
And they're the kind of numbers we need on a regular basis, not just from London movements, but from everyone within the futsal community in England.
Another potential solution is the constant collaboration between universities and futsal clubs. This can help not only for facilities, but also for media and social media promotion, attracting new fans, and even finding talented players for the league.
I think that's one problem in England, and I think more so in Scotland. There's not enough collaboration between different sports to get proper facilities and all work together. Maybe a good point. Maybe more collaboration between Bucks and the kind of the league system would be good as well. But I think there is more that maybe the league could do to get people involved from university backgrounds and stuff that are studying journalism or studying marketing or sports marketing, whatever it is.
University is where a lot of people in England discover futsal. The British Universities and Colleges Sport League, named Bucks, is huge, and its level is not extremely far from the best leagues in the country.
As probably Philippe told you, I'm an ex-Wessex player. I started the partnership with St Mary's in Wessex. I was really keen for that, like, development lines to continue.
Obviously, that's the journey, the background I came from, and seeing how universities can feed the clubs. I think that's probably one of the best ways to help grow the sport. It can't be the only way, but I think we should definitely be doing more. It's free to work with those universities ultimately, and it's in both parties' interest.
I found futsal at uni. A lot of people develop love for certain sports at university. So
the Bucks League is the biggest league in the country. So there are 200 teams, both across male and female. That's 2,000 players. So my genuine belief is that not all the best players are playing in Tier 1 and Tier 2. There are players at university who could play at that level.
For example, Loughborough University is playing in Tier 1. So why not bring in more universities and collab? Yeah, you can always find good players in there as well. People who live at universities can always come to watch games.
Loughborough University is a special case. They have the same team competing in the best division of Bucks and Tier 1 at the same time. José Llorente, the head coach of the futsal team, can share more details of how it works.
La universidad es el gran foco del fútbol sala. So, las universidades es donde la gente todavía empieza a jugar a fútbol sala. Somos un programa aquí en Loughborough, un programa bastante único. Somos el único club que tiene equipo en tanto la primera división inglesa como la primera división de fútbol sala universitaria. y es el mismo equipo. Hay fines de semana que tienen que jugar 2 partidos. Nuestro objetivo siempre es ganar la Liga de Bucks y ganar después el campeonato. Y entonces muchos clubes están viendo eso, que se tienen que acercar a una universidad para encontrar jugadores de donde jugar.
To improve on the international stage, England must improve their league first. This is what Manchester Futsal Club, Bloomsbury, Genesis and other clubs are trying to do, but they work on very limited budgets, so it's not easy. Futsal isn't just overlooked in England, it's not even recognized as an Olympic sport. During the promotion of the 2024 Futsal World Cup, FIFA disrespected the entire futsal community by featuring football players instead of futsal players. Naturally, the futsal community didn't take this lightly. The 2024 Futsal World Cup in Uzbekistan has been full of surprises, and that's one of the magics of futsal. The game is so fast, skilled and intense that anything can happen. Spain was knocked out by Venezuela with an incredible goal in the final 2 minutes. Portugal, the defending champions, lost to Kazakhstan with 14 seconds remaining, marking their first defeat in 25 major matches after winning 4 titles in an amazing run. In futsal, anything can happen. Throughout this documentary, all of our guests have shown there's no doubt about England's futsal potential. England loves sports and futsal can fit in perfectly. The FA, along with England Futsal, now carry the duty of growing the game of futsal, a duty they have recently embraced with exciting progress. In September 2024, England Futsal made history by launching the first ever Futsal Lionesses squad, competing in the first FIFA Women's Futsal World Cup qualifiers, where they delivered a thrilling 8-0 victory against host of the group, Moldova. Though they missed out on the elite round after competitive losses to Slovenia and top-seeded Finland, the Lionesses demonstrated skill, determination and the kind of heart that defines English sport. England Futsal has also engaged fans with behind-the-scenes content, connecting the community and fans to the team's journey. The men's side is also making strides, battling through the UEFA Futsal Euro 2026 qualifiers. Their next challenge, a high-stakes game at Loughborough University against group leaders Spain. The team aims to be one of the 8 best runner-ups advancing to the playoffs. The return match against Bosnia, where they suffered a 5-1 defeat, is pivotal. But with recent successes, including a home win over Switzerland, powered by a hat-trick from Palfreeman, there is a real sense of momentum. It is obvious that England is serious about making its mark on the international futsal stage. Meanwhile, after securing their place in the UEFA Champions League for the first time in the club's 18-year history, Manchester Futsal Club announced their upcoming Netflix documentary, which promises to take fans deeper into the world of futsal, showcasing the club's journey in national and European competitions.
As Manchester Futsal Club host the UEFA Champions League preliminary round.
Probably the most prestigious thing you can do within English futsal, so yeah, it means a lot.
Today is an opportunity to go and win.
This documentary could be a game changer, bringing futsal to an even wider audience and boosting its profile in England and beyond. These kinds of initiatives are essential for bringing futsal closer to the fans, creating excitement and raising visibility. This is just the beginning. With passion, perseverance and continued investment, futsal can grow into a major sport in England. It's a game where anything can happen, a game that inspires, and perhaps one day we'll see futsal take its rightful place on the Olympic stage.